Instead of sitting around a table eating too much turkey this year, we decided to take a trip to Ambergris Caye in Belize. With great fares from Southwest and just a quick 2-hour flight, we were ready. After almost not making the flight, the kiddos are excited to be on our way. And before long, we could see the coast of Belize out the airplane window. We arrive at the airport and find that the Stanley's luggage did not. So after taking care of that, we take a quick taxi ride to the ferry terminal and catch the ferry from mainland Belize to San Pedro town on Ambergris Caye. We arrive just before dark and wait for our taxi to the resort. The resort is only 10 miles from the ferry terminal, so we were expecting to be there in about 20 minutes. What we didn't know is that the road is full of potholes and it takes almost an hour to get there. Everyone was a little tired from all of the traveling, but it was worth it to see that our condo was amazing. After getting settled, we head over to the restaurant for dinner and drinks, getting our first taste of delicious Belizean cuisine. We called it a night after a long day of traveling and woke up in time to catch a gorgeous sunrise from our beach. I could get used to this view every day. After a quick breakfast, it's off to the dive shop to get our diving sorted. And then a quick trip by golf cart to the market. Well, we learned that quick trip has a different meaning on the island and the bumpy road to town. At least we can enjoy the wildlife and plant life along the way. 20 minutes later, we arrive at the market halfway to town. Not quite Kroger or H-E-B, but shopping local is fun of it, right? So we get what we need and head back to town to get ready for our first dive and snorkel. We hop on the boat right from the pier at our resort and head out to Ho Chan Marine Reserve, where the divers can dive and the kiddos can snorkel. Being the explorer that he is, Odin is first in the water. While he stays with the snorkel group, the rest of us suit up and are off on our first dive. Unfortunately, Juniper started feeling sick, so Katie stayed on the boat with her. We head out to explore the seas and see some pretty cool stuff. Like this spotted trunkfish, which is one of many boxfish you can find in the sea. They are similar to the pufferfish, but trunkfish are protected by a bony outer surface that acts as body armor and has two sharp spines guarding their rear fins versus the porcupine quills of the puffer. There was also a school of fish right under the boat that included snapper, jacks, and blue tang. Or as I like to call them, Dory's cousins. And there's our little boxfish again. We also saw a ton of stingrays. A couple of these came right up to Tim to see what he was doing. And in the background, you can see some nurse sharks swimming around as well. As we move away from the boat, we start seeing other kinds of sea life, like this blue striped grunt. And another blue tang. And although you can't really tell from this video, the corals and sponges are really beautiful down here. This tube sponge is almost a fluorescent purple. This French angelfish is so beautiful. If you look closely, you can see some purple and yellow basslets too. With the first dive finished, we head back to the resort to replace our tanks. Poor Carol had a bout of seasickness. Instead of hugging porcelain, she hugged the edge of the dock for a while. Time for dive number 2, and Tim practices a bit more with his camera as we all drop in and head down. This is Katie's first dive since getting certified last month, and she's a natural. I get a chance to grab the camera for a bit and get some rare footage of Tim. And there's Carrie representing UT all the way in Belize. The white sandy bottoms and trenches are beautiful, and we're excited to start exploring. And what's that lurking over there? This poor guy has a hook stuck in his mouth. We didn't see as many lionfish here as we did in Bonaire, but we did see a few, like this beauty. It's a shame that they are venomous and that we have to get rid of them because they're so pretty to look at. And here's a little rock beauty flittering around the reef. I'm not sure if it was due to the marine reserve or not, but there were a ton of nurse sharks here. I'm glad we went to the marine reserve first and were introduced to them in that arena before being out in the open ocean with them, just because there are so many and they are not concerned with personal space, swimming right along with us. Nurse sharks are slow-moving bottom dwellers and are for the most part harmless to humans. However, they can be huge, up to 14 feet, and have very strong jaws filled with thousands of tiny serrated teeth, and will bite defensively if stepped on or bothered by divers who assume they're docile. Fun fact, a nurse shark is able to rest motionless while other sharks have to keep moving to survive. There seemed to be nurse sharks everywhere we looked, and they often had remoras along for the ride. And I guess this fellow was tired of the remora on his back and tried to scratch it off. One of the coolest things was swimming through this cavern with the sharks. One went in right before me, and there were several lurking around when I came out. By the way, this was my first cavern swim through. I never thought I'd be okay doing it, but it ended up being pretty cool. And I didn't die. I'm not ready to try a cave yet, but baby steps. We also saw a few sea turtles. Tim wasn't able to get very close to this one, but several of us did. This is a hawksbill turtle, and he was huge. Especially compared to this little guy, a little cleaning shrimp. During both the day and night dives, we saw lots of lobster, like this guy hiding under the coral. It's pretty easy to spot them with their long feelers out in front. Caribbean lobster are different from Maine lobster as they don't have the big pinchers, but trust me, they're still delicious to eat. While trying to get a video of this spiny crab, Tim realized that there were coral-banded shrimp all around. It's amazing how much we probably miss. Coral-banded shrimp live in a monogamy and are somewhat territorial, defending an area of 1 to 2 meters in diameter against other crustaceans, and in particular other coral-banded shrimps. If another coral-banded shrimp enters its territory, it will defend it, with one or the other shrimp losing legs and pinchers in the battle that will follow. Small but mighty. One of my favorite videos Tim got was of this yellow line arrow crab. You can see all the plankton and algae floating in the water that lands on his legs. He then picks it off and eats it. He's so interesting to look at, and the whole time Tim filmed, he stayed busy feeding. Here's an interesting fact. During mating, a male yellow line arrow crab holds the female against his belly to deposit a sperm packet into the female crab. A female yellow line crab then carries her eggs under her abdomen until they're ready to hatch. Look at this beautiful white urchin. We saw a bunch of black ones, but this white one was a rare find. And if you watch, you can actually see him moving as he works his way across the coral. It looks like he might be trying to grab some of the seagrass. I found out that they use that to try to camouflage themselves. Meanwhile, our little crab friend is still busy feeding, and there's a lobster below him feeding as well. These little guys are some of my favorites. Until I started diving, I had no idea what a nudibranch was. While diving in Bonaire, the dive master set one in my hand that was bright red and yellow and blue. But on this trip, we saw several that looked like this cute little guy with designs on their bodies. If you Google nudibranch, you'll see that they come in a multitude of bright, fun colors as they mimic the corals and sponges that they hide in or on, although this one isn't camouflaging itself with the purple sea fan. I'm wondering if this one is trying to mimic the pores or polyps of this coral. I've always been a bit leery of jellyfish before, since I've been stung by some in the Gulf of Mexico near Galveston and Kemah, and it was a bit painful. But we swam in waters full of these moon jellies and were able to study and enjoy them, as their sting is not strong enough to penetrate the human skin, let alone our rash guards. They're mesmerizing to watch and so soothing, almost like a bird gliding through the air or a ballet. Moon jellies can be identified by their saucer-like shape and the 4 petal-like gonads or stomachs in their center. They have short little tentacles that are used more for capturing plankton than for propelling them through the water. They mostly just let the current take them where it may. Seeing them at night was even cooler, as they seemed to glow in the water. And although this is kind of gross, you can see this one defecating. It's pretty cool. Again, the colors aren't great on this video, but the corals and sponges that we saw were pretty awesome as well. Big fans, gorgonians, tube sponges, bowl sponges, fire coral, elkhorn coral. We saw a bit of it all. And at night, it all looked different with the polyps open for feeding. What looked hard and flat during the day was now soft and fuzzy at night. And inside some of the corals and sponges, you can find some pretty cool creatures, like this conch, or this brittle starfish. And poking out of the hole in this coral was this moray eel. We also saw some pretty cool stuff on our night dive that we didn't see in the day, like these squid. And some of the fish that we saw during the day took on a new brilliance at night. Look at the blue stripes on the sky. And while I think that this coral looks a little disturbing, it's pretty cool to see what it looks like in the day and the stages of it opening up at night. Gary pointed out the starfish to Tim, and then Tim noticed that the coral was covered with them. These two on top performed a bit of a dance for him. All in all, some pretty good diving. When we weren't diving or snorkeling, we were spending time in the pool while the adults relaxed and the kiddos played and practiced their swimming and snorkeling skills. The groundskeeper at the resort hacked some coconuts off the trees and treated us to some fresh coconut milk. And then we set off to explore San Pedro. Tim was braver than me and decided to try some tacos where the locals eat them. He said they were delicious and he didn't get sick, so I'd say it was a success. Although there were cars and vans in San Pedro, the majority of people traveled by golf cart. And the art and architecture had a bit of a whimsy feel about it. We were there during the annual erection of the Christmas tree and got to see the bar where they host the world-famous chicken drop. After a day of exploring, it was time to enjoy the view of the sea while eating some delicious dinner. And of course, some ice cream for dessert. While we explored, poor Junie had to go to the doctor for a severe ear infection. But we learned that healthcare is a bit more affordable in Belize, only $40 for this doctor visit on a Sunday, and antibiotics over the counter at the pharmacy. Then back home for some rest. All the excitement even wore Odin out. And the Stanley's luggage finally arrived. The next day, Tim and I scooted off to check out Secret Beach. We enjoyed some frozen cocktails and yummy food cooked on this fire pit at Pirates Bar and Grill. Then took advantage of the crystal clear water. Word on the street is that Leonardo DiCaprio bought this far island and is building there. We loved the swim up Palapa and all of the little fish that you could see in the water. On the way home, we stopped to get some fresh fruit and veggies from this fruit stand and a tray of Belizean pastries from the bakery, and hit a bit of rush hour traffic on the way back. And just in case you get lost on the one road, there's a sign to direct you. This is what happens to your hair when you're riding with Tim in a golf cart. Nights were filled with some cutthroat card games, adult beverages, with homemade umbrellas for Tim, and moon gazing. We couldn't have ended our trip any better than an all-day fishing, snorkeling, and barbecue trip. A quick boat ride out near the reef in the warm sun and beautiful water. While we're all anticipating the fishing and snorkeling, Junie is admiring the seaweed. Carol, Odin, and Tim are first up for fishing. And Carol is the first to reel one in. You can take the girl out of Ganada, but you can't take Ganada out of the girl. Odin is perfecting his cast, and it pays off. His first fish of the day. After that, we all managed to catch a few. Even Katie, who almost knocked everyone out with her pole. After catching a few more to ensure we had enough for our barbecue, it's time for some refreshments before gearing up to snorkel. After hand-holding with Mom and Vati, the kids quickly become pros and want to explore on their own. And Carol and Tim snap a few more pics and videos. While Katie is in her element. While there's a pretty good current in the shallow water, there was still plenty to see. Schools of jacks and snappers, lots of sea fans and coral, Pretty little sergeant majors. Sea urchins in every nook and cranny. And lots of little black and yellow sand grasses. Some of the fans were a really pretty purple color and were so pretty waving in the current. There's another moon jelly. While we were busy exploring the coral, our dive guides were busy catching lobster and conch for our lunch. And Katie's still chilling. Carol got some great shots of this blue tang and this great star coral. I read that coral use a purple color to protect themselves against the sun's UV rays. We saw lots of these little egg thingies and this cute little Christmas tree worm. This solderfish was hiding but popped out occasionally, and one more pic of a sea urchin. Meanwhile, our guides are still catching our lunch. And Odin is still exploring. Back on the boat, Junie shows off the lobster, and we say goodbye to the reef while we head to the beach for our barbecue. Once on the beach, our guides get the grill going to cook our fish, lobster, and conch, while we relax and enjoy the swings, the hammocks, and Odin continues exploring and finds this dead jellyfish, while the frigates swoon overhead. And Junie accessorizes with seaweed. Our lunch begins with fresh ceviche, followed by our fresh fish and lobster with grilled pineapple and corn on the cob. It was scrumptious. Before leaving the beach, we had to pay homage to the mermaid. And we returned to one last moonrise and a gorgeous sunrise the next morning. Now back to the airport and loaded on the plane just in time. We managed to make it the entire week without getting rained on. The weather gods were in our favor for this week. So long, Belize. And hello, Houston. Definitely a vacation to remember.